Well, hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today is a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. And on this very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things, I'm all alone. Yes, my fiance has gone to visit a friend in Los Angeles, and for the first time in a very long time, I'm all alone. It's fine, I'll survive. She was totally worried. It's really funny, because I spent years. Well, I guess before we get into that, I should tell you what we'll be talking about on the show. We were going to be talking about, of course, some upcoming videos, things that you can look forward to on the channel. We will have a little SAT news update. We'll get into, well, at least a question from a viewer on hashtag askstuffandthings and anything else that pops into my mind for us to talk about. So let's get started. Okay, so as I mentioned at the top of the show, my fiance, Diamond. Those of you who get irritated when I say fiance, would you be irritated if I just say Diamond and then you don't know who that is? Or if you're someone new, you don't know what Diamond is? Is Diamond an actual diamond? It's a human being. Her name is Diamond. She's my fiance. We live together, and we have lived together for a little over a year now. And ever since the whole pandemic, whatever you want to call it, started, we haven't really gone anywhere. I mean, we've gone a couple places together just for a weekend, but we haven't been apart, and it's fine. It'll be fine. I'm definitely gonna miss her. I'm already missing her. But it was really funny because she was super worried about me eating while she was gone. And I have to try to remind her, like, I lived alone for years before we met, and I managed to feed and clothe myself and wash myself and clean myself. Like, I was doing okay as far as that goes. So she was being very solicitous and trying to make sure that she had meals planned for me while she was away. I'm very lucky. I realize that I'm extremely lucky. She needn't have worried as much as she did, but I definitely appreciate the fact that she did worry. But she's down in LA, which is a place I used to live. When I went down to college there at the age of 18, I stayed there for several years. I was not a huge fan of the Los Angeles area. No offense to anyone who lives down there, but as far as many of the things that people love about LA, I did not. Like the climate, I didn't like it being hot all the time. I didn't like it being the same all the time. It would rain maybe a few days in February, like if you were lucky. I just didn't like it that much. I like having seasons. I like the climate of the Pacific Northwest a lot. But as far as a place to visit, there are so many cool things to do. It would be fun to go back there, and it's been so long since I have been there. So I'm really interested to see how Diamond likes it down there. She's been there before, but she's gonna be staying with a friend near Venice Beach, I believe, was where her Airbnb was gonna be. So should be interesting. I know that they're pretty closed down in LA, like even more so than they are here in Washington, but hopefully she has a good time. And don't worry, Diamond, I will eat and I will be alive when you get back. So don't worry. Next, upcoming videos. What can you look forward to watching on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays? Well, first of all, we're going to have the full review of Samuel Gawith, Navy Flake. We did the first impressions video last Wednesday, and now this coming Wednesday, the full review will be posting. And this was an interesting one. Did I say was? This was an interesting one, and I think I used the word interesting about 12 times during that review. So let's try to say intriguing. We'll use that. It's an alcohol topped or case blend that I didn't even really notice the first time I had it. It wasn't until maybe 2 days into trying it out that I started noticing something. I thought, is there a topping here? Is there a casing here? And then I think it was that Wednesday that it posted where I had almost convinced myself that there was some kind of alcohol topping or casing. And then I started reading comments from the video, the first impressions video, and people were mentioning rum. I went, aha, it is rum. But it didn't taste like the very obviously rum-topped blends that I've had in the past. So I was very intrigued by that. It was something that would typically really turn me off from a blend. I really, we can talk about light aromatics or things that I usually don't love aromatic blends, but if it's a light aromatic, I often can get past that. But if it's an alcohol-topped blend, I usually can't get past it. It's usually not something I love that much. But this one, it doesn't have any of the mouthfeel or the weird kind of feeling I would get in the back of my throat from alcohol-topped blends. It doesn't have that tendency to sort of have a very strong, obvious flavor at the beginning of the bowl and then have it all kind of flash and burn off, and then you're just left with something sort of acrid throughout the middle of the bowl. Like, it's just a really subtle flavor, and it really works quite well with this blend. So I don't want to give away the whole review, but it was interesting from me going from not noticing it all and then noticing it, getting kind of worried about it, and then realizing that even after all these years, these somewhat hard and fast rules that I had, like, oh, I don't really like alcohol-topped blends, that's not necessarily always the case. Things like Samuel Gawith's Navy Flake can surprise you, and this certainly did. So look forward to this review. It'll be posting this Wednesday. Of course, our good friend Kevin Kevinson continues his adventures in Valheim every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Stuff and Things Plays. And then next week, is this true here? Keep trying. There's something going on with my phone. I'm using it to record, or I'm using it to turn my camera off and on. I'm just trying to look at my calendar here. Yes, actually, it's perfect. Next Wednesday, not this coming Wednesday, but the one after, will be September 1st, and that means it will be time for my 9-month guitar challenge update. So that will be, when did I start? I can't remember, 4 or 5 month update. I've been working on some songs, I've been working on some techniques. I have gone through the whole emotional range that a human being can experience when it comes to a hobby, I guess, or how you feel about pursuing a hobby. I've gotten very frustrated quite a few times, but I've also just been so exhilarated and so in love with playing the guitar. I don't know. It's been a journey. It's been quite a journey, and we will have an update coming up. Not this coming Wednesday. That's when the Navy Flake review is, but the Wednesday after will be that update with the 9-month guitar challenge. So please be excited. And now it's time for an SAT news update. This week we will be dealing with sort of a local story. Well, at least initially. Some of you may have heard that in Washington State, our governor, Jay Inslee, has reinstituted a mask mandate in indoor public spaces. And that will be starting, I guess, tomorrow as you're watching this. And I'm not going to say anything. I've learned I've learned the lesson very well that I shouldn't probably mention anything about a certain public health crisis going on right now, but I should definitely not give any sort of opinion, because no matter how mild my opinion may be, I will cause somebody to get very irritated. So all I'm going to say about the mask thing is that I am going to miss being able to see people's faces again. It was pretty nice for the brief period to be able to go into a grocery store and smile at the person who was giving me my fish at the fish counter. It was nice to be able to, just give a look or a nod and have people actually understand what you're trying to convey to them. It kind of sucks just seeing this inscrutable mask everywhere you look. It's sort of isolating, it makes you feel a little alienated, and it sucks. Not gonna talk about whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing as far as the medical efficacy. I'm just talking about from a social interaction standpoint, I am going to miss seeing people's faces again when I am indoors. So that's all I'm saying. But speaking of that, I do have a story. I don't want to read this whole thing, and I don't want to get too deeply into it, but it is something that I think is worth talking about, because many of you have children out there. Many of you are thinking about the children going back to school. Some of you may be worried. And I just wanted to read a little bit from this story to maybe put your minds at ease a little bit. This is by David Wallace Wells from New York Magazine. So New York Magazine is certainly not considered a right-wing rag by any means, so bear that in mind. And the story is called "The Kids Are All Right." Now is the time to rethink COVID safety protocols for children and everyone else. So this is a very long, very exhaustive article, and if you have a chance, you should look it up yourself. I think if you're looking on PC, they don't let you read the whole article, but for some reason I could when I was on my phone. So if you look for David Wallace Wells, The Kids Are All Right, you can probably find this on your phone. But let me just read the first couple paragraphs of this, because this is the most important part. It may sound strange, given a year of panic over school closures and reopenings, a year of masking toddlers and closing playgrounds and huddling in pandemic pods, that according to the CDC, among children, the mortality risk from COVID-19 is actually lower than from the flu. The risk of severe disease or hospitalization is about the same as it is for the flu. This is true for the much worried over Delta variant as well. It is also true for all other variants and for the original strain. Most remarkably, it has been known to be true since the very earliest days of the pandemic. Indeed, it was among the very first things we did know about the disease. The preliminary mortality data from China was very clear. To children, COVID-19 represented only a vanishingly tiny threat of death, hospitalization, or severe disease. Yet for a year and a half, we have been largely unwilling to fully believe it. Children now wear masks at Little League games and at the swimming pool, and when school reopens in the fall, they will likely wear masks there too. But the kids are not at risk themselves, and never were. Now, thanks to vaccines, the vast majority of their parents and grandparents aren't any longer either. But first, the kids. Over the course of the pandemic, 49,000 Americans under the age of 18 have died of all causes, according to the CDC. So that's from the beginning of the pandemic. The death rate amongst children, or the deaths of people under the age of 18 from any cause has been 49,000, according to the CDC. So only 331 of those have been from COVID, less than half as many as have died from pneumonia. In 2019, more than 2,000 American kids and teenagers died in car crashes. Each year, according to some estimates, about 1,000 die from drowning. Some of these comparisons aren't so neat, since the data on other diseases and accidents are sometimes unreliable, and because the extraordinary precautions against COVID-19 probably prevented significant additional spread, and also suppressed the spread of other disease. But last year, fewer kids died of COVID-19 than of heart disease, malignant neoplasms, suicide, and homicide, not to mention birth defects, which killed hundreds of times more. All told, 600,000 Americans have lost their lives to COVID over the course of the pandemic. Just 0.05% of those were under the age of 18, a population that represents more than 20% of the country's population as a whole. So it gets into risk a little bit, talking about, well, are these kids maybe going to be a link in a chain of infection and all that stuff? But then also mentioning that amongst, let's see where the actual numbers are. But on that point, mass vaccination in the United States has utterly changed the landscape of the pandemic. Not only by protecting those who have received shots astonishingly well, but by changing the calculus for those who haven't. By eliminating almost all the mortality risk of the population at large. All told, 80% of American deaths have been among those 65 and up. According to the White House, 90% of American seniors are now fully vaccinated. And then it just mentions there is a British study. I'm not seeing that there, but there's this other paragraph I wanted to highlight. And the risk to children is dramatically smaller than the CDC baseline. According to one much-cited paper, the infection fatality rate for those aged 5 to 9 is less than 0.001%. Oh, and then the study from the UK, a very large study from the UK, examining the fatality rate among all those under 18. So this is anyone from 18 to 0. At only 0.005%. So pretty interesting. There's one more little paragraph here when he's mentioning risk is a tricky thing. The spread of the Delta variant and the complications of long COVID, both real concerns, and all parents should assess their own comfort and those of their children in making plans and taking precautions. But very few of them 2 summers ago were sending their children to parks and pools and camps en masse out of fear of pneumonia or flu. Probably fewer were keeping them home entirely. The point being that the flu and pneumonia, the flu is about equally dangerous as COVID to children, and pneumonia is more dangerous to children than COVID. So not trying to have anybody do anything that they don't want to do, but for those of you who are afraid for your children, The data suggests that you don't need to be as worried as you perhaps may be. Now, take all the precautions you want to take, all that good stuff, but if you want to read a little bit more, like I said, this story is very exhaustive. Look it up. It's The Kids Are All Right. Now is the time to rethink COVID safety protocols for children by David Wallace Wells from New York Magazine. So pretty good news. And it's stuff that, like he mentioned, we've known throughout the whole pandemic. People just haven't seemed to really highlight that. And I guess it's because they want to try to focus everyone on, prevention, getting vaccinated and all that. But as far as your kids go, you probably don't have to worry too much about it. All right, gang, and that brings us to hashtag askstuffandthings, but we've only got one question this week. Please remember, if you would like to ask me a question and have me read it out on the show and answer you on the show, tweet at SATBradley with the hashtag askstuffandthings, and I will do my best to answer that question that I get from you on the tweet. Also, if you go to YouTube and leave a comment and ask a question there, I will try to go through those and pick out questions as well. If you are a Patreon supporter, you can ask me questions on Patreon. As I mentioned this week, we only have one question. It's via YouTube and it's from Brian. Brian says, "Hey Bradley, I have a question for the next installment of Ask SAT. I recently received a pipe travel case from a friend that recently got out of the hobby, and I'd like to start using it, but he clearly used it extensively to store heavily scented aromatics. It reeks of sickly sweet, vanilla, peach, etc. It's a really nice case/pouch, and I'd like to put it to use, but I've got to find a way to get rid of the smell. Any thoughts on a way to cleanse it of the sweet foulness and make this travel case usable once again?" That's a tough one, Brian. And a bit of little information that might have helped me try to answer this question is whether or not the case is leather or if it's plastic or, what material is it made out of. If it's leather, it's going to be a little tougher to get the smell out, but you can actually get leather soaps and you can try to scrub it out with that. And then if you condition the leather with whatever you're using, Venetian shoe cream or mink oil or whatever you've got, you may be able to get the aroma out through that means. You're obviously not going to use water and wash your leather pouch or soap or typical soap and water. But if you there are leather cleaners, leather conditioners, you could probably try to treat that a couple times and see if it'll come out. If it's not leather, you could try soaking it in vinegar. Vinegar is pretty good at getting bad smells out, but I'm sure there are quite a few people out there who have some other suggestions for you, and if they could, leave them in the comments below, and that would help out our good friend Brian. But now, before we close, it is time for the very best part of the show, and that is where I thank you, the Patreon supporters. Those who support the channels on Patreon are doing a yeoman's work. They're keeping the lights on here, helping to pay for those lights, helping me to pay for this expensive camera that is filming this video right now, and just in general, making all of this so much more easy for me to continue doing every single week. If you would like to support the channels on Patreon, there is a link in the description box below, and we really appreciate it. But for those who support the channels at $25 or more a month, they get a special shout out. And I would like to thank people like Kirk Crompton, Glenn, Jason Buckner, Jen O'Side, John Leone, Gloria Phillips, Ryan McFadin, Matt Marino, and Joe Heaphy. And of course, the Maniacs, the crazy people who support the channels at $100 a month. People like Peter Straub, Bob Magee, David Gaudreau, and Ashes of the Phoenix. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to watch and share and like and comment and all that good stuff. The algorithm is very impenetrable, but I know that supposedly hitting that like button and commenting and all that good stuff and subscribing will help. It does help, maybe, sort of, I think. So thank you all so much for watching. Please stay tuned for the Samuel Gawith Navy Flake review coming up this Wednesday. Wednesday after that, we will have the 9-month guitar challenge update. Lots of good stuff going on Stuff and Things Plays, and much more of everything else coming up on both channels. But until next time, until we meet again, I've been a good friend, Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a pleasant Sunday, Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.